All right, Americans, your time is up. I'm sick of these stupid movies about cowboys, JFK, Lincoln, and Pearl Harbor. Your history's boring. Your war heroes are lame. What the f did Eisenhower do for us? Huh? If you want to make a movie about a war hero, where's your Goggins biopic? I want to find out why he's always running. Oh my God, I'm being chased by hell. They're always following me everywhere. That's what sets me apart from the rest. The sun is setting on you, USA. You were like iDubbbz. You used to be massively powerful. People would shiver at the thought of being attacked by you, and you were very comfortable with using certain words. But now, you just pay others to beat you up. Not saying that's worse. It's probably much better that your power's been diminished, to be honest. But my point is, it's just time to hear some jingoistic propaganda about a country that's actually relevant. Tuvalu. Tuvalu actually kind of fell off. So, how about some Australian Labor history then? The year is 1916. We used to wear onions on our belt, which was the style at the time. Give me 5 bumblebees for a quarter, you'd say. This is the story of how Australia got its federal police, and it is probably the stupidest reason for a police force ever existing on Earth. And if it's not enough, I'll try and add as many YouTube references as I can into this. So, oh yeah, it's rewind time.
Oh, that's hot.
The year is 1916. It's the middle of World War I. The Australian Prime Minister is the Right Honourable Billy Hughes. He's at odds with his own political party, Labor, as he wants to enact conscription to force young men to go and fight and die in World War I, a war that really has no bearing on Australia's future. And so the trade union movement and Labor are against this. But Billy really wants to rizz up the Queen of England, who for some reason is a king in this period of time. And so for that reason, Billy's dead set on conscription. So Labor expels their own Prime Minister over his advocacy for conscription. Billy goes on to form his own ragtag party full of ex-Labor members who were wowed by the British ability to ruin any place on Earth. You give them a place, they'll ruin it. Bondi Island, Falkland Island, River Thames, dinner plates. Calling this new party the National Labor Party. Ooh, isn't that interesting? The National Labor Party. Just like Avengers. A team. Told you Australian politics was wild. With the support of his new party, Hughes introduced a referendum on conscription. The campaign is going swimmingly for Hughes, in fact, a little too well. With his newfound confidence, Hughes decides to put conscription into swing despite the referendum not even being passed yet, ordering all men from 21 to 35 to be medically examined and then undergo military training. Suddenly, the conscription referendum wasn't some abstract vote on whether you think the British are eats or outre pay Adelaide. It was a vote that was going to determine whether your son, brother, husband was going to be sent off to fight in a war for foreigners. And the tide had turned. What was looking like it was going to be a landslide yes vote didn't eventuate, with no winning by around, whoa, nearly a double Warhammer 40k, 70k votes. Hughes' arrogance had cost him the battle, but the war wasn't over. World War I, that is. Not enough dopamine from hearing about Australian politics a century ago. Don't click off. Just watch this. Just keep it on. Look, we're educational. Family Guy. That's enough, isn't it? Despite the embarrassment of the 1916 referendum, Hughes was still quite popular against the Labor Party's Frank Tudor, and so he comfortably won the 1917 election, which convinced Hughes just to pull an Andrew Callaghan. If Australians said no to conscription the first time, keep asking. Come on, please. Hughes was convinced he could pass conscription the second time around. Furthermore, he had the backing of every premier except one, with even Premier Holman of New South Wales being expelled from the Labor Party for his support of conscription in the same fashion as Hughes. But that one premier holding out was Labor's Thomas Joseph Ryan of Queensland. Hang on, just got to say this. Queenlander! Oh yeah, see, we're keeping Americans' attention by putting in a bunch of internet references. Read that if you know, you know. Hey, running out of patience with this video? Well, let's continue. TJ Ryan was... Give it. TJ Ryan was like the Hassan Piker of Australia. Instead of Twitch streams, it was rallies where he gave very powerful, alarmingly for Hughes, very powerful, very popular anti-conscription speeches. Hughes was determined for the plebiscite to pass this time, so Hughes used the Wartime Precautions Act to enact widespread censorship, as there was a clause in it banning statements that could prejudice recruiting. And this wasn't just some Aidan Ross copy-striking Hassan's video-type censorship either. This was Hughes personally threatening to have any anti-conscription riders shot if they didn't shut up. With the censors down their necks, how are the anti-conscriptionists going to fight the conscription this time? They figured out a trick. They all switched to Rumble. No, Labor parliamentarians realised they could use their parliamentary privilege. Parliamentary privilege is basically the only bastion of true free speech in Australia. It's basically that old law that means anything said in Parliament can't be examined in a court. Labor parliamentarians would use parliamentary privilege to deliver scathing critiques of conscription in Parliament. Those speeches would then be published in the Hansard, the official record of what was said in Parliament, with any member being able to pay the government printer to print as many of their speeches as they liked. These speeches were then delivered en masse in pamphlet form. TJ Ryan even took to reading out censored material from newspapers and magazines in Parliament and then having that material protected by privilege. I miss the days of yore where parliamentary privilege was used to protect Australian youth from dying for the British Empire, not used to epically own YouTubers in court. Then again, I would. This clever trick really pissed off Hughes, who attempted to censor even parliamentary speeches. TJ Ryan had one of the drafts of his speeches so mutated by the censors, it sounded like it was pro-conscription. Ryan had enough, and he delivered the speech to Parliament uncensored, infuriating Hughes. Ryan then ordered the Queensland government printer to print thousands of extra copies of this particular Hansard, with the sentences the censor had attempted to delete printed in bold. That's like being pinned on the front page of Reddit. Serious stuff. Hughes, in response, ordered the Postmaster General to seize and destroy all copies of the Hansard they came across, personally escorting a raid on the Queensland Government Printing Office, seizing 3,000 copies of the Hansard. Ryan then issued a proclamation that the Hansard had been denied transmission by the Post Office and federal government. What happened next was as close as Federated Australia had ever gotten to a civil war, not to be beaten until the days of Jack Lang, and then more recently, Dictator Dan. Ryan was determined to maintain Queensland's sovereignty, and Hughes was determined to maintain his Riz. Hughes and Ryan met in person, with Ryan warning him that if he goes full martial law, there will be consequences. Hughes was then warned by the pro-conscriptionist Queensland printer AJ Cummings that Ryan had readied the Queensland Police Force to fight against any attempt by the military to raid on the printing office again. It's just so good that all this was over pamphlets, isn't it? The Queensland government then organised for 500 trade unionists to become special constables should a battle against the feds begin. Plans were also drawn up to block the Brisbane River, sever rail connection, and for Queensland to be able to communicate with foreign countries. Come on. As if Queensland wouldn't be happier if it was a separate country anyway. Hughes played a great game of brinkmanship and sent his men to check out the printing office. The Queensland police had barricaded them out. Yet the printer who had previously warned Hughes about the cops let them in through the back, where they found no Hansards had been printed. The tension diffused because there was no pamphlets. But think about this. If the Hansard was printed, there was a great chance Australia would have been in a civil war. Queensland versus the rest of yous. What's changed? The rest of this saga played out a lot less glamorously in legal skirmishes between Hughes and Ryan, and later that year, the second conscription referendum was defeated by an even larger margin than in 1916, Hughes taking yet another massive L. So if anyone ever says, I vote Liberal because of free speech, you tell them no. The Labor Party is so pro-free speech they almost caused a civil war for Queensland's right to print pamphlets. And that's how the police were invented. Oh wait, sorry, I didn't get to that part. When campaigning for conscription in Queensland, Billy Hughes was egged. Egged perfectly, no less. The egg hit his top hat, knocked it clean off him. This is according to Jack Lang's book. And now, this is how much of a psychopath Hughes was. In response, he tried to grab his gun, but he didn't have it on him. So he ordered a nearby Queensland police sergeant to arrest the egger. The sergeant responded that it wasn't against any Queensland laws to egg someone, and so he refused. So Hughes was left with no gun or cops to do his bidding. And that's how the Australian Federal Police were born. That is true. That is actually true. Because some whiny politician got egged, they needed a police force that would do their bidding. What's changed?